So we'll wait those 3 minutes and maybe one more. Let everybody assemble. But I know some of you got on very early. I saw some of you on 20 minutes ago. So a couple more minutes and we'll make a start. Thank you very much. Stand by. Hi again, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. It's about 2 minutes before our start time, so I just wanted to say welcome. Thank you for those of you who are already waiting patiently in the room. We'll start in about 1.5 minutes. So just a moment more before we start. We have attendees gathering from pretty much all over the place, all across the Middle East and North Africa. I'm connected from the US. We have some attendees from Brazil. So letting everyone conceptually, metaphorically take their seats. And we'll start in just a second. All right, then. I think it is time to make a start. Let me switch my screen over and we will do that. My name is Ken Lowney. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's great to have you guys all connected from all over the world. The topic today is on electronic batch records. Some of you would very casually call them EBRs, electronic batch records. And our approach today is hopefully exploring an interesting point of intersection between electronic batch records and the rest of your quality management system and your other manufacturing systems, in fact, because we think EBRs are a crucial link connecting the whole ecosystem, the whole manufacturing and quality ecosystem. A couple of housekeeping notes before we start. The first thing some of you will type into the question panel is, can I get the recording? And the answer is yes, and you don't have to ask. We're going to offer you that afterwards in an email. We'll send the replay to you or a link to the replay. So you'll have the recording. You'll also have a copy of the slides themselves in PDF format. So You don't need to type in, may I get the slides? The answer is yes, you will get the slides. For questions, we like to take an approach of accumulating questions throughout the presentation. And there's a place to do that in the GoToWebinar system. In your GoToWebinar environment on the right-hand side, typically you'll see a panel, and on that panel is a place for questions. So that's where you can put in questions at any point, and I, as your moderator and host, will be monitoring those questions. And I may interrupt the flow and cover them, or I may do it at the end of the presentation. So don't hesitate, put questions right into the right panel where it says questions in the GoToWebinar system. And lastly, at the end, right after we're done, you'll get a request to complete a very brief survey. Last time I saw it was 6 questions, and that would be great. That way we know how we did, but we also know what a good topic for the next in the series would be, the next presentation. So that's housekeeping. And with that, I want to introduce my subject matter expert today. If you think of me as the host, I'm also in a way the student and interviewer, where Abdullah is the subject matter expert. Abdullah is the Chief Product Officer at Cygenic, and in that role is responsible for the exact functionality that we deliver in each product. And he's been heavily, of course, directing our electronic records product since its very inception. So if you want to come off of mute, I'll say good morning to you, Abdullah, and make sure you're connected. Can we hear you?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good evening. Yeah, wherever you are. Very excited to be here.
So as I said, I'm in Boston today, and Abdullah, are you in your Jordan facility?
Yes, I'm in Amman.
Coming to us from Amman, Jordan.
Yeah.
Before we start, just a little bit of context. I believe in any such session, you should know who's presenting and what their context is, what their background is. And in this case, I want to tell you a little bit about Cygenic, and in particular, our fundamental belief and what drives us in everything we do. The fundamental belief is that we're at a inflection point, a point of change in the pharma software industry. You'll hear this called lots of things. You'll hear about the Internet of Things. You'll hear about machine learning and AI, of course. Also, the datafication of things and the inclusion and focus on real-time analytics and collection of data. All these things are rapidly changing and are sometimes called Industry 4.0, Industry 4.0 or Pharma 4.0 processes. And what we believe very strongly is that these technologies have the potential to drive a new generation of products and solutions for pharma and to change the playing field. This is really important concept here, that these technologies are coming to us in a way that they can change competitive advantage in the market. Because some of these technologies have only been available to the largest pharma, often called big pharma, because they have the millions and millions of dollars to work with these technologies early. But now we're at a point where these technologies are coming down into the market and available for much lower cost and with much lower levels of time investment. And that means that it's a time for change. And it's a time when, I hesitate to use the words, but underdogs can become superpowers. There's a book called The Art of Winning an Unfair Game, and it's called Moneyball, as you can see on the screen. And although very, of course, centric on American baseball, the lesson is universal. And the lesson of Moneyball is that smaller players, disadvantaged players in a market can leverage technology and gain great advantage very quickly. And that's what we think for mid-sized pharma. Mid-sized pharma, whether we're talking about in various geographies or by size, have a chance to leverage these technologies for great advantage. And that's what Cygenic does. Cygenic provides an end-to-end offering that's focused on the quality space, the document management space, as well as in aspects of the manufacturing and lab space. So we have a suite of solutions that fit together and leverage those Internet 4.0, excuse me, Pharma 4.0 technologies to help our customers gain advantages. So that's it. That's what I wanted you to know about me. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. Abdullah is the Chief Product Officer. Our goal today is not, however, to pitch you on our products. It's to talk about electronic back records in a more academic way, hopefully to provide some interesting thoughts about these technologies. We're going to start with me doing a very quick introduction to electronic batch records, or EBRs, then hand off to Abdullah. He's going to talk about modern EBRs and what are differentiators that you should look for. Then we're going to get very specific on the center point of our topic and how batch records can effectively integrate with your quality management system and manufacturing systems. Back to me, and I'll talk about implementing electronic batch records. I can't talk today. Electronic batch records. And then we'll take some questions and wrap up. So we start with me and a quick introduction. Now, I am very aware that many of you know more about electronic batch records that I can't say, so I'm going to call it EBRs, than I am. But I have to make sure we're all starting from the same place. So here's a quick introduction. So I did something that was amusing to me. I asked ChatGPT about batch records. And on the bottom right, you'll see the entire answer. And as we're all discovering, it was a pretty good answer. So that left me in a quandary. Do I just read what ChatGPT said, or do I add some value? I decided I should add some value. But I will read the very first paragraph that ChatGPT gave me, because it was pretty complete. Excuse me for the screen change. A pharmaceutical batch record, also known as a batch production record or a master production record, which is a little bit not true, but we'll let it go, is a comprehensive document, that's true, that provides a detailed record of the manufacturing process, that's true, and controls for a specific pharmaceutical batch, product batch. It serves as a critical document in the pharmaceutical industry to ensure product quality, consistency, and compliance with regulatory requirements. So I'll give it a B plus, not perfect. It should have said it provides the instructions for a batch and the record of the actual production that happened for that batch. So it wasn't perfect. It was pretty good, pretty scary. I almost never use these pictures of a robot doing things. They freak me out a little bit, but I decided in this case I'd give ChatGPT credit for its B or B plus level effort. Here's my version. I like history a lot, so let me take you through this. This is also a personal example. So on the left, you'll see an old poster for a product called International Scout. Scouts were made in the US but used around the world, and Scouts were, this version of the Scout was in existence from 1965 through 61 through 1970. And you'll see from the ad that one thing that they pitched with the Scout is that you could have lots of different versions with this top or that top, with these wheels or that wheels, with the fold down windshield or not. So all these different options. And if you think of what happened on the production line, think of a Scout as a batch. And on the right, you have what they called a line setting ticket. And the line setting ticket was the set of instructions for building a particular Scout. And that's what you can see in the typewritten information. Use these parts and these options. Put trailer wiring, I can see is jumping out at me. Do the dual fuel tank option. So that's the record of what should be built. And then you'll see in handwritten notes what was built, and quality notes that says, yes, I did this and who did it. I noted at the bottom a particular interesting point. It says at 32 PSI cold. So clearly that's a reference to the tire pressure, and some quality person was doing a PSI check on the tires. This is a batch record. It's exactly what we're talking about. It's the instructions for what to build, and it is the record of what was built. And remarkable, you can still get these. Here's another version. This is a handwritten batch record. If you are a chemist or pharmacist or a medical person, you can see that this was for cough syrup. I see simple syrup, I see wild cherry flavor. So these are the instructions for making cough syrup in a particular factory. And then some records about what was actually done. If you look at the right, it says weighed by, checked by, with 2 sets of initials. So a very simple batch record, handwritten from another time. Then if you move forward in time, you'll see what clearly is an Excel type of batch record, very common. A form filled out, it could maybe have been used by hand, but it could also be filled out in an Excel environment or spreadsheet environment. You'll also notice at the top, it's page 1 of 16. So it's misleading because it looks like a very simple form, but there's actually 16 pages of this for the atorvastatin tablets. I can't say it, atorvastatin tablets. And these are all batch records and what they look like. And lastly, here's an example, front page of an EBR, electronic batch record, which is being computer controlled and going through the system. So this is sort of what I wanted to make sure we all knew what an EBR was, electronic batch record. And to say to you the typical 5 things in a batch record are what batch are we referring to, like a batch number and other identifiers. What raw materials are we talking about? What are the work instructions or procedures for building this particular product or mixing this product? The equipment used and the equipment records at that time, and then quality inspection records of sign-offs of did this actually happen and who checked the work. These are the most typical things that go into a batch record, and in this case, an EBR. And with this, Barb, who's our producer, I'd like her to put up a poll, and this poll is going to allow you to interact. And the question the poll will ask is, how do you currently manage batch records in your organization? So I am going to let Barb, the way this works is they can, if you can come off mute, they can now see the poll. I can't see it.
Yes, the poll is open. The poll's open.
The poll's open. So I gave you 4 choices. How do you currently manage batch records? And I gave you 4 choices with a paper-based system, using a spreadsheet or a simple electronic form, a PDF form, a fill-in-the-blank form, some computer-aided technology other than handwritten with a pen or pencil. Number 3, with an EBR application, an integrated application that moves with the batch through the system, or others such as it's not relevant for you, or you have another way to do it that I didn't think of. So we'll let that poll continue on for a second. And then Barb, if you can close the poll, we'll see the results. Is that right?
Yep, I'm just giving a couple more minutes, or not minutes, but seconds.
Okay. So you're sharing the results now, correct, Barb?
That's correct.
Yes, we can see it. We can see it. Yeah. I'm not surprised.
I'm having a little challenge seeing the results, Barb. Can you take me through the numbers?
Sure. So 87% said they're using a paper-based system, and 13% are using a spreadsheet or electronic form.
Wow, that's really big numbers. So almost everyone connected, wherever you are using a paper-based system. And some of you are at number 2, we'll call computer-aided approach. But no one's using integrated, if you will, modern EBR. So that's fascinating. It's really useful for us to know as we go through the rest of the presentation. So thank you very much. I have one last slide, and then we'll move on to our second section. And my slide is to talk about the fact that batch records aren't something we just like to do, it's something we have to do. Now I'm sitting in the US, so I'm talking about FDA regulation, but the US FDA regulations include at least at these 5 points references to things that we must do with regard to batch controls and the records thereof. I won't go through them in any detail, but the only point of the slide is it's not a choice. One has to maintain batch records in a controlled and stored appropriately. And of course, that's for issues on inspection, or if in fact there's an issue with the batch, so that there's an ability to go do an investigation and figure out what happened. Now with that, I want to change tone. We've introduced EBRs. Now I want to turn it over to Abdullah, our subject matter expert, and let him talk through 5 capabilities of a modern EBR. And he's going to mix together both some examples in writing and speaking, but also from our actual applications, so you can see how these things look in real life. Go ahead, Abdullah.
Thank you, Ken. Hope you can hear me, because I can.
Perfect.
If you can, then probably everybody can. So let me share my screen until my screen show up. So wanted to comment very quickly on the poll results. So yes, to be honest, I'm not surprised. You know, it's been, as you said, not available for everyone to get this electronic batch record, although everyone dreams about it, which I can, I can feel this myself. I was feeling it myself, connection with my friends and colleagues, but still, I mean, we don't have it. And another comment is on the electronic sheets. I mean, nobody would use it, because then you would need to do a lot of CFR Part 11 features, which is dodgy to have using Excels or whatever, any other sheets. So let's see, I mean, if we talk about these 5 functionalities, how we can, have more appetite, basically, and have more adoption rates, basically, to really implement an electronic batch record in the space of pharma, and specifically in the generics pharma. So as you said, big pharma would go for it. So if first option to me is basically having the current technology is really to use a no-code configuration and a user-friendly software, which is what you can get nowadays with the cloud solutions, and especially also from Cygenics software. We can see that in a moment. So and why do we need this? Is basically because we want to see we want to have an easily configured software, rather than typically the ones in the market, the traditional ones, are really more of an engineering software. So that means that it has a lot of menus, a lot of tabs in tabs, and many right clicks that you need to do to work on it. Which if you have a native cloud solution, things are different. So you can use it easily. You can configure fields. You can make some fields mandatory. You can change the type of fields. You can add some pick lists. You can change, the order of the fields very easily without having even to ask your vendor to do it. Which again makes it more user-friendly. So imagine this technology now, because now you can deploy it easily and you can access it anywhere from your Android tablet, from your iOS tablet, whatever, and even from your phone, but you need like a bigger screen. And you don't need really now to have those high performance PCs installed into your production line, which can be a hassle and also costly. So with this, again, these systems would be much easier to adopt for people. And then because it's touch friendly, because you can use it on tablets, and the system would go step by step, like I would see you on our system, and it tells the operator what to do, and it reminds the operator if I'm missing one field, or maybe if I'm forgetting some task to do. So either the workflow would stop and just give me a sign, or it just tells me that there's a mandatory field that you need to fill in. Another thing is that if we have a multilingual software like ours as well, you can get you can switch from Arabic to English to Portuguese, out of the box, and even French, which is very important again, because usually in the production line you would have people speaking the native language. So if you're in Jordan, the people would talk to Arabic, or if you're in Portuguese, people would talk in Portugal, they would talk Portuguese, or even Portugal as well. So this is very important again on the adoptions, because what we can see is that the adoption rates for EBR, although it's very tempting and everyone would like to have, is because of the complexity of operating the software. And again, finally, all of this would really guarantee a less time for training for people. Now, this is very important. Onto my second feature, when again, it's all related to cloud technology, which is basically having a flexible and scalable software platform. So basically here, what we're saying is that if you have this software, the EBR configured for example, one product, so you can easily scale it up to another product. You can easily scale it up to another SKU, another batch size, another production line, or even if you have different sites. And also you don't need to every time to roll out, have a rollout plan, have some implementation, some task force to do it. It's much easy, and you can do it yourself even without having to go back to your vendor. So this enables, as Ken said, small-sized, medium-sized companies to really adopt to this technology, rather than only the large pharma who can only afford it in the past. Having said that as well, if you have a cloud solution with a modular capability so that you can plug in, like ours, QMS and LIMS inside one ecosystem, then also you get a brilliant results where you can track everything in one place, in one screen, and then have and enjoy the next point, which is dashboards and analytics. So if you have data, you can see, you can play around with it. If you don't have data, you can do nothing. This we'll also be looking at. I'm trying to be fast because I want to see the most interesting stuff when you see the system. So, and again, an EBR is more of, a modern EBR is more of a system that teaches you what to do rather than filling a PDF format. So if you go and apply for your visa application or your embassy application, then you just fill in those fields and that's it. This is not what we want. We want the system to tell us which stage we are in. Like you can see here, I'm in initiation, I'm raw material checking, whatever. So it tells me where I am and then what steps I need. And also we can link those stages into some automatic tasks, which I'll be also showing you in a few minutes. Again, having a cloud-based solution, you can have it pre-validated. You can enjoy CFR Part 11, Annex 11, GAMP 5 features, e-signatures, audit trails, permissions. You can all have these all in out of the box, which means that you can get as well free updates. This is something that it was not there in the past with a traditional quality system like on-premise solutions. So you get a free update with a validation package that consists of the standard package basically that you think of is risk assessment, traceability metrics, IQ, OQ, and then also we can help customers to have their PQ protocols so that to execute yourself. Or last point is basically a cumulative of what we just discussed. So again, if you think of the traditional ones, it's not cost effective. So we want a cost effective, which is related to fast implementation. So now if you look at the table here, let me see if I can choose a laser pen or something. Okay. So yeah.
I think the bang was on my side. You should be all set, Abdul.
Sorry?
I think the noise you heard was on my side. I apologize.
Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, so let me just do this. Sorry. Yes, so yeah. So if you can see my mouse here, the third column talks about the difference in implementation time. So a traditional custom-based on-premise, I would say, solution would take you around 1 to 2 years to implement, which is kind of long and frustrating to everyone, to the team, and to the management as well. A modern SaaS software, a cloud software, would take you around 6 to 12. We can go up and running in 6 months as well. This means that you would have direct impact on the cost. So like the license to service ratio, the traditional one would be from 1 to 5, which means you're paying 5 times more the license in an on-premise solution, just only for implementation, for time just to go live, which is again huge. With a modern cloud solution, you can go from 1 to 2 ratio, so you're only paying 2 times the license. And I can tell you also from my experience on our system, we can go even to 1 to 1, so it's not going to be higher than your license for a first year cost. And again, this would mean that lower cost upfront in terms of your down payment. You will only be left for your subscription. Upfront resources, whether it's going to be IT resources or human resources or server infrastructure, all of that is much less when you talk about cloud. And we just discussed about how it fits with company sizes. So a cloud solution can be used for like almost all sizes that they can enjoy, small to medium, high, big size, and even you can extrapolate. Like if you're growing, your company is growing, you're acquiring more companies, you can just go and set up another site. And if I have time, I'll just probably show you on the system. And again, the focus now.
Abdullah, before you go there, I just wanted to highlight what you just said, mostly because it ties back to my point that now these technologies can be used to change the competitive balance, that small and medium companies can do what only large pharma could do 4, 5, 6 years ago. And in particular, you've got wonderful metrics here about time and the ratio of the license cost of service. I'm comfortable also saying there's an actual ratio between big pharma and today's solutions in terms of total price, where big pharma might have spent quite literally several millions of dollars to put in place such a system over that period of 1.5 years. And now we're talking about measurements in tens of thousands of dollars to put in place such a system in a year. So remarkable leveling of the playing field. I'll be quiet now because you need time to actually show us stuff.
That's okay. I took a rest for a moment. Right. So yeah, and the last point is that with cloud solutions such as Cygenics, it's more on the configuration rather than the customization, which is very important. And also, I'm just hinting, maybe we can discuss that later, is that also interfacing with machines is much now easier. So we can have out of the box integrations like with other PLCs, for example, whether you have Siemens, Rockwell, Mitsubishi, Xenon, whatever. It's now even easier to do this integration, which was really a burden. And that, at least for myself, when we thought about it like 5 years or maybe more, is that, how do we connect my old machines? So now it's much easier to do. Right, so perhaps it's now to go to the, can you move the slides, Ken?
Sorry, Abdullah, I can't move them while you're the presenter. We can make me the presenter if you want.
Okay, so.
Use your arrow if you want.
I just fixed it, so that's fine. Right, so now just let's probably take some time to show you how it's done on, real life on the system. Let me just go to, can you see my screen, Ken? And I suppose if you can see, everybody else can.
Yep, I can see the Cygenics system.
Okay, so this is our system. Basically, I'm logged in here as an admin. just to show you more flexibility and more functionality. The system is cloud-based. You can log into it without the need of any middleware, any aiding tools or softwares. You can switch languages, as I said, whether Arabic, French, or Portuguese. You can add more. You can navigate the modules. So basically, you will be seeing on the left side menu everything, quality management, modules, electronic batch record, and you can also see LIMS sitting in one ecosystem. And if you want to navigate the system, is easy. So I can open, for example, my production processes and have a look at them. I can also see my tasks. I can click on my task because maybe by time I have many stuff to do. So maybe I have, I'll just see all my tasks. So I have aggregation process, I have packaging. If I have deviation or kappa, then I can see. I can also filter by the closed ones or not closed ones. And I can see the overdue records as well, just for me to follow up. Okay, so that's something that you can do very easily. Of course, you can search it and you can have a calendar view as well. So you look at your month and see that I have a deviation and I have an aggregation, which is overdue. This is the color. What does the color mean? And I can look at a list view, or, and maybe I can see also, if I'm like an admin, I can see all the users and the tasks assigned to them. In this environment, I've assigned only to myself. So that's why you don't see assignment to other users. Right, so going back to our subject here, if I show you one example, and I hope I can just elaborate on this because it's quite a lengthy process. You're producing a batch, probably it can take a week or so, or maybe at least few days. So let's see how we can navigate this process. So it starts with a process, and the good thing, as I told you earlier about the system, that it can tell you where you are. So this means that the workflow was progressing from initiation to raw material check to QA warehouse inspection, and then weighing, and then granulation, and then packaging. Of course, this is just a mini process. I mean, I know you have a longer process, but that's easy to configure. I mean, we can add sub stages, we can link stages together. This is very easy. So this is just for the demo. And if I want to see what are the related records, so the test system tells me here that to check the record details and associated tasks. So record details means that I can look at this looking like a PDF, which is basically auto-populating anything I'm doing during which all of these stages. So the product was on Densitron, it was a solid line number 2, the dates and everything, it's really captured here with my e-signature, the first batch and my second batch, and all the information. Okay, so you can see it from here, and you can also see it electronically by navigating to tasks, and it tells you what are the linked tasks to this June production process, which I call. So I have in weighing 2 batches, and I have in granulation 2 batches. Of course, it's like a campaign, I can have more. And I have 1 deviation, unlucky. So it happens. So you have a deviation that I can show, and I can see my packaging, which also here beautifully showing that, and at least in our region where we have a batch, and then we can pack it in different destinations. So this is, for example, a MENA package, and this is an EU package, and I will be showing you how to add even more packages in this record as well. So if we want to see, let's just see what we just talked about, the link of quality. So let's see this deviation, how it looks. So if I click on that, it will take me directly to the deviation. I'm not going to log into another system. I'm not going to do any integration. It's all in one place. And again, I can see the record life cycle very easily if I look at this record. So it was opened and in review. There was no more information, this is why it's light colored, investigation, waiting, implementation, and then I asked the system not to wait for the kappa, and then I had QA approval QA manager approval, but I skipped QP approval. This is, as most of you know, is a requirement for the European market. It's coming to Saudi Arabia, Jordan soon, and maybe somewhere else. But we can change it easily to a quality director or quality VP, which is very easily can be configured. So this is the life cycle of my deviation. Not only this, in the same manner, I can look what are the sub-records that were, linked to that deviation. So there is a investigation tab, but there are 2 investigations, and I can create many. So now I have an R&D investigation, and I have the main investigation, which is just basically, probably quality investigation. So you can look at these if you click on them, and there was 1 kappa. Okay, so if I just go click on the kappa, for example, see what was the kappa is. So the kappa shows again that if you look at this line here, this is a kappa that is coming from a deviation, and the deviation is coming from this Joom production process. So it's all linked together, and you can drill down more by, if you, like I created here an effectiveness check. So I wanted to check the kappa effectiveness, as most of you know. So if I click on it, I keep on drilling down and see how the connectivity works out beautifully. So I know that this is here effectiveness with a kappa, with a deviation, and all this. So again, I can always look at the record, and I can, see if I don't have any task, then I know that I don't have nothing to do, and so that it's self-explanatory that people don't need to really worry about how do they progress. So that was just how, if I go back again to the deviation, I can just hover around this, and then just have a look at it. Of course, I can see the deviations here on the left menu, but it's all linked together here in one place. So going back to my production process, talk about more on the production and electronic batch records. You can see here now I'm on packaging, and I still have to complete or pause the product the process, which means that you can pause it to have a deviation or something, or just have a provision. So let me just show you very quickly, and I think I'm getting a lot of time here. But let's see if I'm, like I just said, I have here packaging for these 2 markets. Let me see if I can add more. So let's perhaps call this local market, which also happens in real life. And then I add here local market, and I can add whatever details I want. I can assign priorities to the task, whether it's too important, high, low, just for you to follow up on it. I can assign a user, so I'm assigning it to myself. I can assign it to associated user, which basically, for example, somebody who's in planning, for example, who just want to see, how the process works from one stage to another. So you can just specify those users, the general manager, a production manager, anyone. And then you can, as we just described, assign it to a site. So if you have like 10 sites or 5 sites, it's similar. So you can just assign it to a site. And not only this, you can also assign the packaging to a different batch record if you want. Of course, any field of these can be integrated with ERP. So once you say, I want this information to get populated from ERP, it will do. So now it's just not being connected. So now I can have a due date for it. I can attach some files, and I can, add some tags as well if I want to add some additional tags. So this is just only the first step. So now I decided that I have this other market that I want to do packaging for. So of course, this is a staging environment, which means that it has limited storage, but then on production, you can get a much smoother experience. Right. So, okay, so now the packaging for local market has been created. I can go now and fill in some information. I mean, you can add as much as field as we want here. I can take this, for example, to be a date, or I can make it anything here. I can add many attachments. I can add e-signatures. So it's just a an example of, how do you do things here. So I'll just submit it just for the sake of time. And then I'll proceed for the next step. So again, as I told you, you have this, arrow and line just telling you how do you move from one stage to another. So if you can see here, I have in the next stage is going to be safety precautions. So we will come to that in a moment until the system loads up. Yes, so these are the safety precautions. So you can see this is what I wanted to show you. Now we have it in 2 languages here. So we have English and Arabic at the same time. So, and you can have like Portuguese as well. So whoever you have in the production line, you can just read and then acknowledge these, these, instructions. Okay, so I can just submit it and then move on to the next step, which is general instructions, special overprint, aggregation process, and then we have a summary of the batch, which probably, so again, the system tells you what to do stage by stage. I don't have in this environment a set of dashboards, but I just show you on another environment how it looks as a dashboard. So see here, it's for quality, but it can be done for anything on the system. So this is a dashboard for like deviations. You can also have a list, what are the not assigned root causes, and you can have the numbers and everything. So it's just very easy to navigate. It's just, you just go to dashboards on the left side menu. Right. So again, for just to be on the time cautious, I'm going to show you more like on the packaging. For example, you can go here again, navigate to packaging, and I can see, for example, that EU which was completed. See this first one, MENA packaging, is now under aggregation process, and this is closed. This means it's finished. So I can release now on SAP, on ERP, on anything. And then I have my general instructions here. This means that this one is still that we just created. So if I go for this one that was already finished, let me just show you again very quickly. And I know Ken is now perhaps looking at the watch. So yeah, you can look here and they can see all the stages. And again, you can look whatever sub-record. So I was having aggregation for this. I was having some special overprinting. And I have a summary of the batch. So it's like reviewing summary. And it's again where you can have a workflow and say that I want, for example, to check cleaning, I want to check the waste, I can want to check reconciliation, calculation, accountability, and if I want to check for, so you can go through all these stages. And of course, maybe we don't have time, but it's always easy to have calculations, or you can put some calculations, the system can calculate for you accountabilities, reconciliations, very, very easy. So I think that's, I mean, in a nutshell, I know most of you know that electronic batch records, in fact, it's more looking as an MES, which is like a manufacturing execution system, where you can look at all the stages and how you link them all. This is what we can do in a 20 minutes time, or 10, 15 minutes demo. So I hand over to you, Ken. I don't think we can take more time on this.
Okay, so you want to click and make me presenter, okay?
Yes, I'll do that. Usually I'm kind, I can do that.
Unusually kind person.
Right.
So now we have a section that's hopefully fun and different. And I put the late night show scene up because I want to put Abdullah on the couch and ask him some questions. Now, Abdullah and Barb, we're going to make some adjustments on the fly because of the time. Abdullah, I'm going to throw you a curveball, as they say, and ask you some questions, but we're not going to use any slides to answer. Okay, Let's just talk. That will save some time. And Barb, we're going to skip the second poll. All right, so those are the change ups, if you will. So let's talk. Let's make sure we're both showing our faces. That would be a good thing so that people can see us while we're talking. So Abdullah, what I want to ask you after what I've seen is a question that came in from the audience. And you had mentioned that integration with machines is now easier than it used to be with modern manufacturing equipment and lab equipment. Why is that? Is there a standard interface or do they all have APIs? How does that work that it's faster and easier than it used to be to integrate the entire ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you, Ken, and the audience for the question. So actually, when you talk about machines, production machines, you're not talking about a software or a normal software with APIs or REST APIs as other softwares would do. You're talking here about a PLC that is really, hooked to the machine. It can be 10 years old or maybe 5 years old, depending on how old is the line. But the most common PLCs would be coming from like Siemens, Mitsubishi, Xenon, Rockwell. So now we have this, if you like, a middleware, third-party middleware, which is just ready that you can get, and they have the interfaces with all these PLC versions available. So it makes it more easier. So once we have the data, as we said, it's nothing. It's just mapping this field with that field, and that's it. So the integration is much, we don't have to worry about developing the middlewares for this. It's readily available. We have partners for that.
Your answer makes perfect sense. It also gave me a little shiver when you used the term middleware, because I remember those days. So I'm very glad that we don't have to deal with the middleware layer, because that's usually where every large software deployment runs into issues. So that made a lot of sense. I had another question, which was asking about the physical environment here. So we can now picture an environment with manufacturing equipment connected in the way that you said. What about the actual interface between humans and computers? Does this mean that we would have workstations scattered throughout a production environment with employees accessing those on the floor, or is it still behind the glass wall that the computer interactions take place?
Well, again, we mentioned about, because it's cloud-based, it can work from any browser. It's much easier now to have either tablets, small tablets, very kind of reasonably cheap. So you can you can get like 3 devices or 4 devices in a cost of 1 PC, and so you can spread them all in the plant. So it's much easier than before, and it's touch friendly. So you don't, if you imagine people in the plant, they have gloves and they're wearing all of this. You don't want them to write on a keyboard or something. So you can touch and just input the value, say yes or no. So as probably I showed you, some fields it's only maybe yes or no, or maybe just acknowledging, or maybe, and if you have the interface, then the data is coming, and it's only your password that you want to input on the screen. So it's easier than ever to have it, because that's also something that would really increase the adoption rate. If you have accessibility on the system, then it's no longer that the change management of, no, you want me to go into that computer, go out in the room, go out from the room, or maybe go into that corner, or maybe, so it's much easier than before.
That helped me a lot to think about tablets. I was picturing an earlier time of pedestals with PCs wrapped in plastic, but of course it would be much simpler now with portable devices. Now we get into some questions, and I have several of them that are on the integration. So you showed us some things that were very compelling. I'm going to restate one of them and see if my image is correct, because that's the question I got. So the integration of an EBR and what I think of as a quality management system, where the quality management system is about corrective, it's about deviations and investigations and corrective actions and change controls. So I can picture that side of the world. And then I picture the EBR that's operating in the MES side of the world. And they feel kind of separate. But I think what I heard you saying is exactly the opposite, that a corrective action, for instance, may tie directly back to a specific batch. And that's where the key point of integration is needed, to connect the quality process to the batch system so we know what batch we're talking about. Is that too simple, or is that the idea?
Yeah, it's the idea, and if I may add to this, is basically, well, I think people here, if I have people from quality here, they know what I mean when I say review by exception. This is kind of the ultimate goal, where we can go to a level that to review the whole process by exception. So it means that you can reduce time like 90%. So if usually you take 3 days to review a batch, then it can go to a few hours or maybe less. So if you're lucky enough, you don't have a deviation, you don't have a kappa, then you can just just release the batch easily, because now you don't have to go through like 100 pages or maybe 200 pages to look on the where you're looking at the detective eye, where you're looking at the problems. So now it's the other way around. You trust the system because it's CFR Part 11, and it's what we call as well data integrity by design. So everything is there, everything is timely captured with permissions and everything. So you only look for the odds, and when you look for the odds, so whether it's a deviation, it's either closed or not. If you don't like it, you just say go revisit that deviation. If you like it, you just release the batch. Tremendous time and efforts would be reduced.
Well, it's a good segue to the last set of questions in our last section. Here's one of the most interesting questions I think could be asked. We know from our poll that in this audience, a lot of people are using paper-based systems for EBRs. And the question coming in is, so I'm on paper-based on the quality side in the EBR system. Which do I do first? Should I start with a QMS or should I start with an EBR? Is that an easy question to answer, or is it a big it depends, Abdullah?
Yeah, it's more of the consultant default answer, which depends. Basically, yeah. But the good thing at Cygenic, at least, it's not a consultation. It's something that we work out with the customers. So we sit down with them, we analyze, because we have that full suite. We can tell them where to start. Some companies, we told them just go and have your document manager, because you still are very paper, on SOPs and everything. So, and probably you start with some modules in quality system. It's always good to start with electronic batch record because it's like the ultimate goal, if you like. So we can phase it depending on how many batches, how many product mix we have. We can probably go with EBR maybe on top 5, top 10 products. And then we say, let's go with have QMS, have the basic ones. I mean, we can give this, Ken, we're coming from the industry. We worked for the industry for more than 10, 20 years. We can tell people, I've been in their shoes, and I know how difficult really in an audit to search for a document or for a training or for, a batch that you want to get from the archive, which takes really a lot of time. So yeah, we can probably scope it out, but I'm a quality person, so I would start with the basics of quality management, deviation kappa and document and training, and then perhaps start with an EBR with maybe my 80% products mix. Maybe like I go with one major production line, or maybe some top 10 products or top 5 products. It's very important to have product families, because that's something we can scope out with, and we can do some POC as well, proof of concept, during our visits, that to scope it out and see how many product families, and then we can give them a plan for free.
Well, that's really helpful in thinking about it, and it's a good lead in. I'm going to go through just a couple of pictures, and then we have a couple of more questions that are really on implementation. So stand by, Abdullah. We have a few more questions, and for everyone else, we'll be finishing up in about 4 minutes at the top of the hour. I mentioned that we'll be skipping some of those slides, but on the implementation side, I do want to cover these quickly, and they are very quick. This section is meant to be about going about implementing an EBR system. And I interviewed Abdullah, I talked to other people, and I have my own experience at Cygenic of observing customer implementations. And I boiled it down to these 4 points. Pick an easy battle first. And this goes to the answer to start with EBR or start with something else. And the answer is pick an easy battle. Start among friends. This is a winning the hearts and minds type campaign where we want high adoption, high enthusiasm. So start among friends, those who are likely to be enthusiastic, and begin in a limited domain where you don't have to, in quotes, boil the ocean. And instead, you can pick off a scoped, well fenced off area and make a definitive impact quickly. I also wanted to point out the idea of appointing a product owner. This is not the IT side. This is someone who is the key person who says, this is the project. And they're not just a project manager either. They're probably a middle manager who this is their baby. They are going to be implementing this system. Therefore, they have the subject matter expertise. They're talking to users and communicating to the implementation team about what to do next and in what order. Then expand incrementally. I think Abdullah used the term MVP, a minimum viable product. We use it in software all the time. And it means don't try to solve the whole problem at once. Get something functional first. If you have a desperate transportation problem, get a motorbike first to solve it before you try to get a minibus. Identify adjacent targets. So once you have your initial deployment, start expanding. Again, hearts and minds. This is like a pleasant way of infiltrating a country and consistently adding to the scope. Promote incessantly. This is about internal marketing, and I say do it shamelessly. Solicit the leadership that you need to be saying the right things at the right times and saying that it's a key company initiative. Use real examples, case studies of we've cut time on the production line for this batch by X%. So create those exemplars and then integrate carefully. Now, what Abdullah said is more important, that don't be afraid of integration. It's easier than you think. But still, politically, don't break someone else's baby. If we start to cross lines, we want to be very sensitive to that we're getting information from machines, but we're not affecting the operation of those machines. Focusing on small wins.
Can I interrupt you on this, Ken? Just a quick comment.
It's a perfect time. It's a perfect time because we're going to switch now back to some questions. So go ahead.
Yeah, so on the last point, we have been receiving, I was very happy to hear some customers that they are like self-aware, that they say, we want to work on paper on glass, which is a concept that means you automate the process, you automate the fields, and then you think about the integration rather than, because in the past, everyone was thinking about having an EBR or something, but then everything, is frozen the moment they think, oh, I need to think how many machine I have, how many PLC I have. It's old. I have old new ones, mixed, and so people now are saying, okay, let me just try and now, because you need to configure your workflow, how your workflow would look like, how would your forms, because it's dependent on your registration. It's now linked to your registration. So I have this process, I have these parameters, I have these specifications. You put them, and then you can say, okay, let me do now the integration. It's something that we are receiving, in fact, from the customers now. They want to start paper and glass, and then full integration, maybe next phase.
I understand exactly, and I love that phrase, paper and glass. Because of our time limit, I'm going to boil it all down to one last question. I think this is perhaps one of the most interesting and important questions. Abdullah, we're being asked by someone, make believe you work in my job. How would you convince the CFO and the CEO to make an investment in an EBR? What would you say? And you only get 45 seconds to make your case. Go ahead.
Okay, that's challenging. I've done this in the past. So I think on the EBR, you get easier job to convince your CFO, because it really is, if you sum up the things that we just talked about, the time of release reduced, many operational excellence, initiatives that you can take out, because now you see everything, what the process that makes usually problems, how are you doing with your standard times, are you going far, you can reduce the time for review, and data integrity by design. You have less deviations by design as well, because you know, if they need to fill in this field, they have to fill it in. They cannot forget it. And so it really sum up with everything. It's on the human resources and also on the time. The people also in the industry, they know annual product reviews. It's a very tedious job to do. So imagine that you have this suite of data from manufacturing, data from quality. You can reduce, if you have 3 people doing only, or maybe more, doing only this annual product reviews the whole year, then probably you can save less, people, and they can do something else rather than, doing it. So I would say, and surprisingly, on the electronic batch record, perhaps it's much easier to convince a CFO just over dinner.
I love that. Nothing convinces like data and talking about actually producing more product faster with less people. And that's provable. So with vendors like Cygenic, I know I'm asked to do that, and would be glad to help any customer in doing their own ROI analysis. We have to leave it there. We went over time by a couple of minutes. I apologize. I appreciate the audience sticking with us. Here's what I want to remind you. You're going to get an email with an offer for this recording if you need it internally, and the slides themselves if they're useful to you. In addition, right after I'm done talking, you're going to get a screen to do a quick survey. It's just 6 questions, and we would appreciate it so much. I think it will take you about 90 seconds or so. So with that, in overtime, I say thank you very much, Abdullah. I really appreciate it. It was fun doing with you, and I can't wait to do the next one. And you folks online, tell us what the next event should be in the Cygenic series. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.